like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment if you're ready to step into a place the world pretends doesn't exist, because once these doors close, nothing comes out the same. The call came in just before dawn, when Moscow's streets were still frozen in silence. A freight truck had been abandoned near a railway spur outside Orenburg, engine cold, doors sealed from the inside. When authorities finally forced it open, they didn't find stolen goods or smuggled weapons. They found a man bound, alive, trembling, his eyes wild with terror. He repeated the same words over and over, barely able to speak them. Black Dolphin. They're taking me to Black Dolphin. The name alone shifted the mood of the investigation. Black Dolphin Prison was not just a facility, it was a final destination. A place designed for people the Russian state believed could never be released back into society. Serial killers. Mass murderers. Men whose crimes were so severe that even other prisons refused to hold them. If someone was being transported there and escaped, it meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. The man identified himself as Sergei Volkov, a former prison logistics contractor. He claimed he'd been forced into the truck after discovering irregularities in a classified transfer list, names that weren't supposed to exist. Names of inmates officially declared dead, yet still being moved under heavy guard. Before he could explain more, Sergei collapsed, his body shutting down from shock and exhaustion. Within hours, the case landed on the desk of investigator Elena Morozova, a veteran known for handling politically sensitive crimes without flinching. She had spent years untangling lies layered beneath official paperwork, but even she felt a chill when she saw the destination stamped on the transport manifest: Penal Colony No. 6. Black Dolphin. Morozova knew the rules. No media. No leaks. No mistakes. But as she reviewed the file, small details began to scrape at her instincts. Security clearances issued and revoked within hours. Surveillance gaps during transfers that were supposed to be airtight. And most troubling of all, a discrepancy in prisoner counts that had been quietly corrected without explanation. She flew to Orenburg the same night, the landscape outside the window flattening into endless snow and concrete. At the local detention center, Sergei was barely conscious. When Morozova leaned close, he opened his eyes just long enough to whisper one sentence. "They're not just locking monsters away," he said. "They're hiding something with them." The next morning, Morozova requested access to Black Dolphin's intake records, an unusual move that immediately raised alarms. Calls went unanswered. Emails vanished. By afternoon, she was ordered to stand down, reassigned to a routine fraud case with no explanation. That was when the second incident occurred. A guard assigned to Black Dolphin's outer perimeter was found dead during a routine shift change. No signs of a struggle. No alarms triggered. Just a single missing keycard and a section of surveillance footage wiped clean. When Morozova reviewed the timestamp, her blood ran cold. The erased footage matched the exact window when an unregistered transport had entered the prison. And whatever or whoever was inside that convoy was never logged on arrival. By the time Elena Morozova realized she was no longer just investigating a crime, but being watched, the case had already begun to erase itself. The guard's death at Black Dolphin was officially ruled a medical emergency. Heart failure. End of report. The missing keycard was never mentioned. The wiped surveillance footage was labeled a technical fault. When Morozova pushed back, her access to the prison database was quietly revoked. Someone high enough to touch Black Dolphin was rewriting reality in real time. She did what she had learned to do years earlier: work outside the system. Morozova tracked down a former Black Dolphin administrator living in quiet retirement outside Kazan. His name was Victor Malin, a man who had signed intake forms for over a decade before suddenly resigning without explanation. When she arrived at his apartment, Victor didn't invite her in. He spoke through the door chain, his voice low and shaking. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "That prison doesn't just hold killers. It holds secrets no one survives knowing." Victor revealed that Black Dolphin operated under two ledgers. One public, meticulously audited. The other handwritten, locked away, tracking inmates classified as non-existent. These prisoners were never named, only numbered. They were transferred at night, blindfolded, restrained, and removed from records the moment they crossed the gates. Why keep them alive? Morozova asked. Victor's eyes darted down the hallway. Because dead men can't be interrogated again. Before he could say more, the building's lights cut out. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. Victor slammed the door shut. When Morozova returned the next morning with a warrant, the apartment was empty. Victor Malin had vanished, no luggage, no bank activity, no trace. At the same time, Sergei Volkov disappeared from medical custody. Security cameras showed a power interruption, followed by 3 guards entering his room. Only 2 guards exited. Their IDs were later flagged as counterfeit. Sergei was gone, and the hospital staff was warned not to speak or lose their jobs. Morozova now understood the pattern. Witnesses weren't being silenced publicly. They were being absorbed. She obtained leaked architectural schematics of Black Dolphin from a former contractor. Hidden beneath the official layout was a sealed underground wing labeled only as Unit 0. No windows. No visitation routes. No release protocol. Prisoners sent there didn't exist to the courts, the media, or even their families. As Morozova prepared to submit her findings to an international watchdog, her apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen except her case notes. On her desk, someone had left a single printed photograph. It showed the inside of a prison corridor. Concrete walls. Steel doors. Prisoners kneeling, blindfolded, hands bound behind their backs. Standard Black Dolphin procedure. Except one figure stood out. A man in the center of the frame was lifting his blindfold slightly, staring directly at the camera. It was Sergei Volkov. Scrawled across the bottom of the photo were 4 words written in black ink. He made it inside. And suddenly, Morozova realized the most dangerous possibility of all. Someone wasn't trying to escape Black Dolphin. Someone was trying to get in. Elena Morozova stopped thinking like an investigator and started thinking like prey. If Sergei Volkov had entered Black Dolphin willingly, then the prison was no longer a cage, it was a vault. And whatever was locked inside Unit 0 was valuable enough to erase witnesses, falsify deaths, and bend the justice system, without leaving fingerprints. Morozova leaked a fragment of her findings to a Western investigative outlet under an alias. Not the names. Not the documents. Just one detail. Prisoners officially declared dead were still alive inside Russia's most secretive prison. Within 48 hours, diplomatic pressure began to build quietly, the kind that never makes headlines but rattles closed doors. That was when Black Dolphin responded. Morozova was summoned to Moscow under the pretense of a disciplinary hearing. The location changed twice. The escort vehicle took a route that bypassed government buildings and headed toward an airfield used exclusively for classified transfers. She understood the message immediately. This was not a meeting. This was a relocation. As the plane lifted off, her phone vibrated once. A single incoming file from an unknown sender. No text. Just coordinates. The plane never reached its destination. An emergency diversion landed them in Orenburg again, citing weather interference that didn't exist. During the confusion, Morozova slipped away using credentials she had prepared weeks earlier, moving through service corridors she had memorized from old schematics. She followed the coordinates to a maintenance entrance bordering Black Dolphin's outer perimeter, an access point officially sealed years ago. Inside, the air changed. Heavier. Controlled. Cameras tracked every movement, but some angles were blind by design. Unit 0 wasn't built to prevent escape. It was built to prevent discovery. Morozova descended into the underground wing. Behind reinforced doors were men who should not have been alive. Former intelligence assets, political assassins, mass killers whose trials had been sealed or erased entirely. They weren't serving sentences. They were being preserved, studied, questioned repeatedly over years, extracted for knowledge no one else possessed. And at the center of it all was Sergei Volkov. He wasn't a prisoner. He was a courier. Sergei had discovered that Black Dolphin was being used as a human archive, a place where the state stored men who knew too much to kill and too dangerous to release. His escape had been deliberate. a test to see if anyone was still watching. Morozova had passed. Sergei explained that prisoners in Unit 0 were occasionally removed, not for release, but for operations that required deniability. If they died, the world believed they had been dead for years. If they succeeded, no one could trace them. They don't hide killers here, Sergei said quietly. They hide responsibility. Alarms began to sound above them. Not loud, not panicked. Controlled. Surgical. The prison was sealing itself layer by layer. Morozova uploaded everything she had in real time, files, images, testimony, to multiple international servers. She knew she wouldn't leave. That had never been the goal. Exposure was. Security forces arrived within minutes. Sergei stepped back into the shadows, already resigned to his role. As Morozova was detained, she saw guards escorting prisoners deeper underground, farther than any map showed. The story broke 3 days later. Governments denied everything. Russia called it fabricated intelligence. Black Dolphin continued operating as usual. No officials were charged. No prisons were closed. But something changed. Transfers to Black Dolphin stopped for 6 months. International monitors were suddenly allowed into Russian penal colonies, everywhere except one. And intelligence agencies across Europe quietly reopened cold cases tied to men officially dead. Morozova was sentenced to 15 years for treason. Her name vanished from public records. Yet one detail refused to stay buried. 3 months after the leak, a contract killing in Western Europe bore a signature method linked to a murderer declared dead in 2004, one known to have been sent to Black Dolphin. The prison gates had never opened, but something inside them was still being used. And if this story shook you, remember, there are places in the world designed not to punish evil, but to preserve it. If you think this was intense, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe because some stories don't stay locked away forever.